What's up, people? We are back with more Fault Milestone 1. At the end of the previous video, I had to cut it a bit short when we were in the middle of linking with each other because Selphine and Ritona just sort of linked up with Albus through Mana Crafty to sort of exchange their experiences and their knowledge through a very quick way, which is basically just happens in a few seconds. So yeah, right now they're in what appears to be that same room where Albus and Sid Zevich were talking earlier, with that very first prototype of the CT scan of what, or the MRI scan of where Albus first found out that the real Rune, when she was a little girl, turned out to be emotionless. Like, that part of her brain was just completely dark. So that part of her brain was just non-functional at all. So yeah, let's continue, because we obviously want to find out more about whatever. We're still so unclear about what that thing that we saw that looks like Rune and called herself Rune, but is being called by the other people as Sarah, exactly is. We are now in the realm of media. We have entered your subconscious through the mind dive Mana Crafty. In other words, this realm is the manifestation of my subconsciousness. My subconscious is being manifested? My thoughts are flowing out audibly? They are, and we are indeed within your subconscious, Mr. Folster. This is my subconscious? By entering your subconscious, Ritona and I have made it so that none of us are bound by the flow of time while we continue our earlier conversation. That's why in the real time, in real life, it only takes like a second to exchange so much information and all these experiences, but in the meantime, actually what goes on inside obviously is very intricate and takes a lot of time, but just in the real world, it's just snap like that. Now that we are linked, every thought that is born within my mind may be received by both Ritona and you, and likewise. I just heard her speak without actually moving her lips. I understand that receiving another person's thought may feel overwhelming at first, but you will soon become accustomed to the routine. Accustomed? I'm still struggling to accept everything that I'm experiencing at the moment. Under optimal circumstances, the mind dive Mana Crafty assists in the instantaneous facilitation of exchanges. How the exchanges manifest is irrelevant. The underlying purpose is to conduct conversation in the briefest of moments. An hour's conversation could be concluded in a few minutes. Since you're still getting acclimated, we're just going to take our time. Usually, the more participants in a Mana Dive facilitated conversation there are, the longer it takes. We should treat this like we would a normal spoken conversation first, before proceeding through our thoughts. That would be wonderful? Is it wonderful? I don't have the faintest clue what I should do. You shouldn't think at all. At least not thoughts that you wouldn't want the other two to hear, because they can obviously clearly just hear every single one of your thoughts. Is it wonderful? I don't have the faintest clue what I should do. Relax, Mr. Folster. While you may have fallen prey to the uninitiated's mistake of voicing a thought that was only meant for your ears, don't let it discourage you. Remember, we are within the realm of media, which effectively acts as a manifestation of your subconscious. There is no distinction between veracity and fallacy for any thought that you give birth. The purified mana coursing throughout your brain and body contains your innermost memories, the expression of which is facilitated by your subconscious. Then, effectively, all of my innermost memories will be unveiled? Only if you allow yourself to express each and every one. Thankfully, a filter for catching the most private ones exists. Yeah, thank God. I was thinking if this actually exists in the real world for us, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that, because then people would just know my deepest, darkest secrets, you know, that I killed a human. I buried the body in the backyard. Nobody will find it, nobody will know. Except when I link up with them. So yeah, obviously if I had a secret like that, not saying that I do, then I would have to avoid linking up with someone through a mind dive mana crafty. While you are within the realm of media, your conscious mind may play an active role in preventing your subconsciousness from unveiling sensitive information. You can control what emotions, memories, and thoughts you want us to hear, while keeping your innermost thoughts safe. If your conscious mind is preventing sensitive thoughts from streaming out, we are powerless to force you to unveil those thoughts. Essentially, we hear the selected pieces of information that you want to share with us, while withholding everything else that may be too private to disclose. I understand now. I just never experienced or witnessed something so magical before. The Mind Dive Mana Crafty is among the few unique Mana Crafties in existence. I have a bad feeling about this. Like, Albus is just so perplexed and just dumbstruck by what is happening right now, because to people in the outer pole, this is just basically alien-like, right? They've never experienced this. They don't even know how to do this. Mana Crafty is just unknown for them, basically. And considering how they are sort of, they have a mana mine, right? Although I'm not entirely sure what the purpose for it is, I have a feeling that they might, because they say that people here aren't particularly I'm not sure about friendly, but it's dangerous for mana crafters like Selphine and Ritona to reveal themselves as mana crafters in this area, solely because of what they are and what they can do. Because I'm not sure if it's just people being jealous because of the fact that they here cannot do that, or that it's just the unknown, or for whatever reason, but I have a bad feeling about this. That sure, for now, Albus might seem like, oh, this is so interesting, this is so awesome, and then capture them, something like that. He's gonna do something like that. It wouldn't surprise me at the very least. Only the recipients of the Path Down Mana Crafty, namely ruling the monarch and their heir to the throne of Rughzenhaide, may utilize it. It's not an important fact that needs to be heard by Albus, so I'm actively filtering these thoughts to myself. This changes everything. Since I'm no longer strapped for time, this means we can engage in a long and leisurely chat. Your observation is accurate, but that doesn't mean that we intend to reside long in your subconscious. Are you becoming accustomed to communicating through your thoughts? If you think you're ready, then we'd like to delve into the details concerning Sarah. If you're ready to share, then those thoughts should enter your stream of consciousness and flow out for the both of us to hear. Nothing is happening. Give it some time, Mr. Folster. I suppose this was to be expected, given the unfamiliarity of purified mana regulation to a resident of the Outer Pole. Usually, it would never take this long to form and communicate a coherent thought. Why don't we take a moment to relax? When you're comfortable, we can try again. Indeed, although it is unfavorable for us, we really do have all the time in the world right now. In time, you will be able to convey and control your thoughts at will. Thank you both. Even now, I am still quite in awe of these turns of events. And with each exchange you both make with me, the more pleasantly surprised I am by your heartfelt sincerity. I am genuinely touched by both your thoughts, which are tinged with care and compassion. Strangely enough, we feel the same about you too. Huh? This manifestation of your subconscious is beautiful, clean, and pristine. It represents your best qualities, Mr. Folster. Your subconscious is incredibly stable, which is representative of your mental state of mind as well. Selphine is correct. Your stable state of mind has allowed us all to communicate through Calm Crafty without any issue. If your state of mind was to be complete opposite, with qualities that were unstable and antisocial, your subconscious would have manifested into something bleak, dark, and sullen. I'm not sure if we're looking at the same surroundings, but the background that I'm looking at right now, compared to what Ritona and Selphine are saying, it kind of describes bleak, dark, and sullen, but maybe we have different meanings of those words. Interesting. I mean, if it wasn't, when I think of the words bleak, dark, and sullen, and then think of the opposite, I imagine rainbows and ponies and stuff like that. But that's not what I'm seeing, so. And while I hate to disappoint you both, I must admit that I have been known to cross a moral line or two in order to achieve my personal agenda. Which begs the question, how do I know that neither of you is really a spy after Zevit's Enterprise's secrets? For all I know, you could have been coached by Hivas, who is Hivas, in order to lull me into a false sense of security. I knew he fostered suspicions about us. He actually has for quite some time. But now, I actually feel quite foolish for doubting you both. Now that I can sense your pure personalities in my heart, this is the final conclusion that I have reached, based on my findings to date. But more importantly, I now know that you both care deeply for Sarah and would like to do anything to help it. Again calling it. Well, he's finally sent his first thoughts down the stream. Before delving into the subject of the Zevit's siblings, or Sarah, we must first acknowledge the pivotal individual who was fully invested in all of their lives. That very person is Sid Zevitz, the founder of Zevit's Enterprise and father to Rune and Rudo. He was the eldest son of the Zevitzes, who were nowhere near the affluence that they were or that they are now, and grew up with the mindset that carried over into his future business practices. I knew him since he was a boy, raised in the old slums of Cadia, and we were practically inseparable. I was his first and final friend until the day he passed away. Sid's father was a mess and incorrigible excuse for a man. He was a drunkard, renowned for his violent outbursts against his own family, and a barbarous man by nature. His occupation was completely based on opportunism, meaning that there was never a stable source of income to sustain his family. Everything was get rich quick or nothing. One day, when Sid was 9 years old, his rotten, opportunistic father leapt at the chance to ship back thousands of settlement stones to Cadia, all which were said to have been completely imbued with purified mana. He was promised a fortune for his services, but never returned to the city or his family. What, he ditched his family for money? And now Sid, at the age of 9, was left to care for his bedridden mother all by himself. All that time, Cadia was nothing but a small, poor mining town, and the townspeople could barely survive the winter with the little resources we had available. Many people perished during the winters, especially in the slums where both Sid and myself resided. If only we had some kerosene. That was Sid's only concern, second to his mother. We did everything we could for Sid's mother, everything within the power of 2 9-year-olds, which didn't amount to much in reality. For 2 years we labored away, doing any and every odd job available around the town, until Sid's mother's time came. She passed away when we were both 11. The death of Sid's mother had an immediate and profound impact on Sid's perception. From that year onward, he became angry, bitter, and resentful. But he did not drown himself in sorrow. Not when the world, as he knew it, was so bleak and hopeless. He realized that, unless he acted and used his personal tragedy as a motivator to become something more, he'd become yet another statistic. Once he was unshackled from his beloved but bedridden mother, Sid found another object of devotion to be chained to for the rest of his life as he knew it: mana. Of all things he could have chosen to pursue, why mana? I asked myself. Mana was the cause of his father's disappearance, perhaps even death. In fact, If it weren't for the promise of a fast fortune through purified mana, Sid's father might not have gone missing, and Sid wouldn't have had to struggle to care for his mother as much. So why did Sid pursue the root of all of his misfortunes? Well, one day, while Sid was laboring away in the coal mines, he discovered a fragment of a sediment stone containing a trace amount of colored mana. He found thousands, in fact, and later smuggled them out, without anyone else noticing. He wasn't doing it for the sake of resale, though. He was going to use them for research, which would become the foundation of the remainder of his life. Yoey! Phew, somebody must have upset the foreman today. He was driving us much harder than usual. I'll tell ya, Albus, working a coal mine ain't a job for the living. People shouldn't stick their necks out for a few stupid stones. It barely pays enough to put food on the table either. Gah! I feel nothing but sore pain! Regardless of our gripes, we should be grateful to even have employment. Cadia's heading into a downward trend day by day, and this year's winter is supposed to be even worse than the past. I guess we'd better count our fortunes then, Albus. At least we're stifling and scorched where we're working our butts off. Agreed. Even if I could afford an education, I don't think I'd be able to sit still for a single minute. I learn best when I'm on my toes. Who needs school anywho? We're doing just fine on our own, Albus. Haha, I suppose we are. That reminds me, get a good gander at this, Albus. Sid. Is that what I think it is? You betcha! It's a sediment stone. It's a pretty crude cut, but it's got some good colored mana imbued within. What? Where did you find this? Inside the damn coal mine that we work every day, Albus. I think I might actually be a mana mine. Sid, what are you going to do with it? You're not thinking of selling it, are you? Don't you know how Cadians feel about mana crafters? If you're caught selling that stone, they'll throw you in prison. Have some faith, Albus. I wouldn't sell this precious sample. No, it has too much value as research material. Research? I know you won't snitch on me, but to tell you the truth, this ain't the first sediment stone I found in that coal mine. The first sediment stone I found that was like this was no bigger than a speck. The further I dug into that area, the more sediment stones I kept unearthing, like gems. I finally struck a cluster of sediment stones. Sid, have you been sneaking them out of the coal mine? Hear me out first. I got something of great interest to show you later. Stop by my laboratory in an hour or two. What laboratory? Do you mean your house? I'm calling it a laboratory, and I wish you'd call it the same too, Albus. Does the phrase, "let's meet at my place," instill a sense of urgency or mystique? I think not, Albie, old boy. Stop trying to talk like an old fogey, Sid. You need years, wrinkles, and a lot of white hair first. Just stop by later. Why don't I just go over right now? Oh, well, here's the thing. Huh? It's... You know when my mom passed, Albie? I thought I'd leave her a flower or two on her grave. It's already first anniversary. Time flies. Anyways, just meet me at my laboratory in an hour or two. I'll be back around then. Years after Sid shared his secret with me, we began experimenting with his countless sediment stones in order to find a way to convert the colored mana into purified mana. Even though Sid's father was one rotten bastard, Sid inherited his reckless penchant to dive headfirst into something that piqued his interest. We shared many of those reckless experiments from the comfort of his laboratory. We devoted our youth to researching mana, as if we were driven by some sort of invisible force for a better future. There were times when experiments were wonderful successes, and times when we regretted conducting them. One of those regrets resulted in self-inflicted mana shock syndrome and caused Sid to temporarily lose all motor functions in his left arm. But one day, we finally succeeded in answering the big question. We had successfully converted colored mana into purified mana. We noted our procedures, we performed the experiment, we made the discovery of the century, and word of our success spread like wildfire throughout the outer pole. We patented our procedure, and we were ready to sell the untapped energies into homes throughout the continent. But we lacked one crucial component to spreading the fruits of our labor. Why, Sid? Tell me why we bothered wasting away our years on colored mana conversion if we're not going to sell it. We need investors to spread our groundbreaking research around the outer pole, Sid. We can't even think about expanding until we figure out how to get consistent and stable output of purified mana out of these filters. If a single sediment stone has a low concentration of colored mana, the energy output through the filter will be equally low. We need to make sure that all sediment stones contain a proportional amount and contain enough colored mana within to outperform a burning candle. Our research is riding on drawing out colored mana from sediment stone, Albus. I'm not talking about the long term yet, Sid. We need to think about now and getting funding in order to expand and perfect our research. Albus, have you heard of electricity before? Electricity? Oh, the electricity generated from lightning bolts? If I recall, I heard that someone from the third sector was trying to harness that very same power. That's right. But that research is still very much in its infancy and nowhere near ready to being implemented beyond the laboratory setting. I hear the nature of that research is also quite hazardous as well. There's too much uncertainty surrounding the subject. It's under such scrutiny by the board of academics, particularly on the outlook of immediate implementation. Academics, I don't believe a word they breathe. If I didn't stumble upon these treasure trove of sediment stones all those years ago, I would have probably pursued the study of electricity as well. Besides, Albus, who's to say that the nature of our research isn't hazardous? Heck, I bet lightning's a much better playtime than natural mana. Depending on the day, lightning might kill you or spare you. Why would you say that? My left arm's been acting up again lately, Albie. Do you feel any intense pain still? It's not the pain that's getting at me. If I had to describe it, sometimes it feels like the flesh of my arm is slowly melting off the bone. It's like it's been drenched in acid. That can't be right. Has it been that way since you regained control over it? No, it was all good until recently, Albus. I didn't say nothing at first, since it never got in the way of our research and work, but it's been hard to ignore lately. What could be causing it? I ain't sure, Albie, but for all of our breakthroughs and research in all forms of mana, we still know jack squat about its effects on the human body. We continued our research into solving the proportional division that we observed during purified mana conversions, and eventually discovered a solution. It wasn't long before we chanced upon a group of investors who were genuinely interested in our research. We made it through life with dumb luck, as I always said, but Sid always countered with, "There ain't no luck out there that's dumb enough to help our sorry butts. We made this happen." Years passed after our newfound success. Our research was being applied in a real-world scenario, and we both continued to constantly improve on our foundation. In time, those very same investors helped us immensely in the establishment of Zephith's enterprise. It was around then when Sid met a girl who had just moved into Cadia. Her name was Eileen Klaslu. Klaslu. Aline had unnaturally beautiful eyes of emerald, glistening pearly white skin, and a wonderfully sweet smile. She wouldn't take any sass from a single person, was overly outspoken and also strong-willed, but she, like Sid's mother, was fragile from birth. Her only wish in the world was to do something beneficial, not just for Cadia or the Outer Pole, but for the whole world. She was a darling woman if I've ever met one. Her presence alone would give cheer and joy to the other people around her. Even people with the toughest exterior would just melt into a puddle at the sound of her sweet voice. But as far as the general populace was concerned, Aline Klaslu was a goddess in the guise of an angel. And all the while, Zephyr's enterprise was growing substantially, but we weren't driven by profit. We did our damnedest to save lives during our first winter in Cadia, and made sure that our services was affordable enough to meet that end. Our consumer base wasn't as vast as we expected, but by the end of the harsh winter, almost every one of our customers survived. We left our mark in Cadia in that way. As we bathed in the fame and glory, being hailed as the quellers of the cold, Sid and Celine's first child was born. Rudo. I never knew a more intelligent child in my life. Nurtured by Aline's warmth and gifted with Sid's brilliance, Rudo was raised with the best of both worlds. We all lived such happy days, painted with the promise of even better days. If only we had kept our eyes peeled over the horizon and not been blinded by our bountiful boon, so we would have noticed the emergence of the greatest threat to our existence. The greatest threat? Is it really? Oh, it's hi, Hives, right. Sid, Aline, did you hear yet? We have competition. Hives Corporation. Hives? Ain't that the name of that Nimrod that tried to tame lightning before tossing it all out in favor of mana? I've heard about them, but just the rumors. The rumors are true, Aline. They're using the filter that Sid patented to convert colored mana into purified mana. Shall we pursue litigation for copyright infringement? Nah, leave 'em be. Those filters are relics as far as I'm concerned. I ain't got no use for them anymore anyways. But dear, doesn't the fact that they're using your filters means they're gunning for you? Hives must feel bitter and resentful for his failed research into harnessing lightning, so he's lashing at you, his competition. Ha! Sounds like you're a run-of-the-mill, short-sighted bastard. He could have stuck to what he had put his name and faith in and continued his research, but instead, he's taken a pot shot at our success by diving in head first into an already full pool. And to think, the bastard has the nerve to use his direct competitor's invention to find his corporation and compete with a tried and true enterprise? When you put it that way, I must give him credit for his complete disregard for the concept of shame. Although, his blind recklessness does remind me of a certain someone. Say what, Albie? I may be a reckless risk-taker, but at least my well of innovation hasn't run dry enough to resort to thieving. Touché. You may be correct to dismiss the trivial matter of the obsolete mana filters. They might just fade out of existence if their aim is to topple us with our old filters. Nobody knows what the future holds, Albus. We're up against a shameless bastard who'd use his competition's own product against them. While Hives will never be capable of innovating ever again, don't expect him to die out by the time winter's around. Wait. Hives. Isn't... If I remember like a couple of videos ago, Herchwan talked about this, that like the city sort of split up with the energy that they use. But I think he said that half of them, and especially his half of the Kraukli's the shop, that was using Hives his energy source, so his mana source, I guess. So this is in the past when he's not that worried about Hivas yet, but it seems that in the future, they're, at least in the city of Cadia, they're about 50-50 over sort of consumer ratio. Eileen, what's the matter? You look pale. Sid, I can't explain why, but I just have a bad feeling. What's there to feel bad about? Don't you think that our lives have been going a little too smoothly? Nothing bad has happened to any of us or your company since its establishment. I just feel like this can't be coincidence. Come on, Eileen. Since when did you turn into such a superstitious worrywart? Neither Albus nor myself has done anything to warrant any worries. We never stole anything, killed anyone, or cursed a single soul. We owe nothing to anyone. I suppose so. Years after making the statement, sweet, darling Eileen gave birth to her daughter Rune. Uh-oh, the hell spawn. That's when our fortunes started turning on us. Hiva's expansion throughout the outer pole exploded, rivaling our company's size within a matter of years. When it came to the know-how of mana, its workings, or our advanced research, there was absolutely no compare. And yet, for some inexplicable reason, they managed to become a real threat to our existence. Nobody, absolutely nobody could have foreseen their explosive growth. With the availability of purified mana for consumer use, from an entity that knows as much about it as it does lightning, the threat of misuse became a niggling fear. As with the experiment that had gone awry in our youth, causing Sid to experience chronic episodes of pain, mana had once again poisoned itself against us and the rest of the inhabitants of the outer pole. We knew little about the effects of natural mana on the human body, aside from mana shock syndrome, and so Sid took precautionary action. Sid convinced our long-time investors to invest a grand sum into the medical field, with a little persuasion to the company's deep-pocketed investors, in order to advance medical research into the profound effects of mana on the human body. Sid, who was now leading medical research, had appointed Eileen as the acting CEO of Zevit's enterprise, and hired physicians in all relevant fields for his newest additions to the company, the Zevit's Medica Group. The goal of this group would be to attend and serve as the primary care for the Zevit's Enterprise's mana mine workers and laborers. Zevit's Enterprise invested heavily in training procedures and preparatory field cases. However, it would be a good deal of time before any of these healthcare workers would even begin caring for mana mining laborers or settlement stone classifiers. Unlike Hives Corporation, we sought to retain and look after the health of each and every one of our laborers and workers. They were not expendable, unlike the workers being exploited by our competition. Their method of exploitation, while completely ignoring the safety and well-being of their workers, was simple. They employed an immunostimulant known as Process 1 or P1, which contains antibodies to make the user more resistant to the effect of colored mana on the body, allowing them to work through the day and night. The users, who were offered the incentive of permanent employment, willingly allowed themselves to be injected with regular doses of P1 and would henceforth be known as subjects. Subjects were not only granted with the benefit of the immunity to lesser degrees of mana shock syndrome, their bodies were also observed to feature an abnormal increase of muscle mass, as well as bone structure growth and an additional boost in energy. Hives capitalized on these benefits and employed a large force to constitute a grand majority to their workforce. In a time where work was scarce and the grand majority of the outer pole was working class, they all flocked over to Hives. They had a firm grasp over the hearts of the people, despite our best efforts to appeal the long-term healthcare provisions for our workers. This was when I saw the specter of Sid's father arise and sway the populace with his unsustainable get-rich-quick creed. Yeah, that seems like such a... because especially if you are in like a poor environment, because what Albus and Sid are trying to do is they're trying to think long term, right? Whereas what Hives was doing was basically providing short term success, quote unquote success, but it actually damages them in the long run. So kind of the opposite what you would want to develop a country, right? Or at least a continent or whatever. When you're sort of a poor country, you want to develop over time rather than have a quick boost of development and then crash later on again. Like that just makes no sense at all. You just rather have a steep but slowly rising development of healthcare and whatever, and basically everything just in general, rather than be good at something for a short while and then after that it's just gonna be gone or something. It just, when you're in that sort of desperate situation, I feel like people tend to just, oh, look at that, it's because it's immediate, right? People fail to see the long-term benefits of something when it doesn't. When they see something else that benefits them immediately, they'd rather go for the immediate benefit of something. So yeah, I sort of feel bad for Sid that they actually are losing to a competition like that. But I don't really want to say stupid people, but stupid people. Hey, that was horrendous. Tell me about it. I never thought the excessive use of P1 would lead to such a sickening sight. What can one expect from a mind freed of natural fatigue? They become withered shadows of their former selves. Likely, prolonged ingestion of P1 caused the user to build up a tolerance to its mana immunity properties until it became ineffective against mana shock. Hives flooded a local abbey with all their permanent employees who had succumbed to it. They had to turn away most of the incoming afflicted to a church in a neighboring town. Oh, the irony. That's not all I have to report, Sid. We have another problem. When Aline, the Medica's program's director, and myself went to the Abbey and made a proposal to build a new Zevitz Medica hospital for general care in the area. The fat friars gave you the stink eye, did they? They assailed us with rather abhorrent, unbecoming things in the names of the Abbey's apostles. The friars blamed us for the calamity that befell the afflicted there, cursing us for committing sacrilege against their mana deities. Even the abbot accused us of being blinded by our pursuit to better people's lives, and the deaths of his workers were retribution for our sinful acts. Sinchmen, I cannot discern the veracity of the head priestess' allegations, but I am of the opinion that, as of this moment, our only prerogative is to put our plans for constructing a new hospital in that town into action. Why doesn't the Acadian government outlaw the application of P1 for human trials altogether? It would spare all those poor people from suffering so. Sid, if you could convince the board of academics of P1's danger, then maybe they could convince the government. I doubt that, my dear. Why, Sid? People are dying. Our people. Well, I guess it has something to do with the patented production of P1 on the outer pole. Now, producing P1 takes a lot of know-how and can only be done by the people who know how to extract colored mana through mechanical means. Otherwise, there's no other means of extraction available to us. So, here's my take on the whole situation. Despite its harmful side effects, the Acadian government can't afford to outlaw P1. Not when it's secretly involved with the exportation of our only domestic product, second to coal. They're in cahoots with Hives, and probably the board of academics for that matter. What? Why would they do that? Isn't it strange how Hivas' workers suddenly shrivel up, even though they're consistently administered P1? A single dose should keep them going for an entire day. Well, I figured that before Hivas gives them another dose, they probably extract whatever's left, like how mana crafters extract purified mana. They could probably synthesize even more P1 from daily extractions. Whatever they could be using all these immunostimulants for, though, is anyone's guess. They could use it to give birth to enhance the aggression of their army, and they could even weaponize the damn drug. No! That's just my take on this dreaded mess, my dear. I have a lick of evidence to back up my claims, or I don't. Historically, the worse the situation is, the higher the likelihood your predictions are correct, Sid. Evidence or no evidence? Let's leave the superstition and trends alone for now, Albie. It's time to get back to the topic at hand. On the issue of forcing our expansion and initiating the construction of the new Zevets Medica Hospital, I completely share your sentiment. But Sid, you're forgetting about the perceptions of the public. When it comes to houses of worship, they'd rather seek salvation than have their lives spared by doctors. Assuming that the current scenario will still be in play, even if you pull through and build the new hospital, the chances that they choose to go to Zevets Medica over an overcrowded abbey are slim. You have a point, but why? What did we do to deserve to be brushed aside and distrusted so? If anything, we helped save lives during our first year as a company. Don't people remember that awful winter? If I had to guess, Sid, the fact that we're a private and for-profit company, much like our competition, automatically makes us less trustworthy than an abbey. I'm not opposed to the idea of building a hospital, but given our present circumstances, there's very little point and purpose. What then? What can we do? Sid, I have an idea. What is it? Your theory about the Cadian government being aligned with the Hivas got me thinking. Why don't we just align ourselves with the Abbey? That way, we could pave the way for the new hospital with their full support. Come again? We'll have to invest in the Abbey first, perhaps purchase new furnishings, and even renovate the outdated architecture. We could even name the new hospital after the Abbey. And in exchange, the Zevets Medica Group will serve as the hospital's administrators. This arrangement would allow Zevets Enterprise to retain full ownership of the hospital in exchange for a few concessions. Impressive! The clergy will reign only in name, while their gods govern from above. Hold on just a second, my dear. Now your plan is very grand, and has left me at a loss for words. But what will compel them to want to work with us? They clearly despise everything we represent and stand for. We can do something about that. We can? A few days ago, I heard about the passing of several of the Abbey's sisters after being infected with mana shock by the afflicted they attempted to save. The souls in their care are crazed and violent and need to be restrained in order to administer treatment. Several sisters died recently because of this. With care and compassion as their only weapon, they tried to reach out to the victims. They did everything they could to provide adequate care to the subjects, absolutely everything in their power. I propose that the next stage of the Absolute Obedience Automata project be dedicated to the memory of the Abbey's fallen sisters. We should reprogram the automata to prioritize supporting the Abbey's sisters in their line of work and lower the priority of mana dowsing. If at all possible, the exterior features should appear more human as well. They will be assigned to guard and protect the sisters from any in their care who exhibit severe infection symptoms stemming from mana shock and P1 fueled aggression. Elaine! That's a spectacular series of ideas, and it just might be within the realm of reason. I'll draw up a new design incorporating these features and submit them to our partners for manufacture. There's a sort of poetic justice to this all. We make a living selling our groundbreaking research, all of which is rooted in science, and yet we must now depend on the theologians to survive, or theologians. Do contrasting ideologies really care any clout when both parties benefit from finding common ground? Exactly. I like this woman, she's very smart. Our prerogative now is to care for the victims afflicted with mana shock syndrome and to prevent any further cases from occurring. Holy crap. Like, my throat is actually getting a bit sore, so I think I'm gonna stop the video here. I've been trying to do a lot more of Fault Milestone 1 and making the videos a bit longer, but I think I'm gonna have to rest for today, or at least my voice, so I'm gonna try and record more tomorrow. But yeah, this is gonna be the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more, and I will see you in the very next video of Fault Milestone 1. Peace!